Hey, this is Mohal Joshi from Los Angeles, California. I follow Indian foreign policy and defense with a special focus on Asia. You can follow me on Twitter at Mohal Joshi.
Hey, this is Kishor from Bengaluru in India. I am an international relations expert specializing in global security, conflict resolution, and international negotiation. My focus areas include peace building and digital diplomacy. You can find me on Twitter at Veggie Diplomat. Hello and welcome to episode 49 of India Rising Strategic Affairs Conversations with Mohal and Kishor, a show in which we analyze the happenings from around the world and their impact on India. This week, we're going to talk about the horrific terror attack in Pahalgam in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir that happened on Tuesday, 22nd April, 2025. It was a busy holiday season in the beginning of the holiday season, and tourists from all over India had come down to Pahalgam, and the terrorists, sensing an opportunity, swooped in on the tourists holidaying in the Baisaran Valley, just above on the higher reaches of Pahalgam town, and the terrorists instructed the tourists to show their IDs and remove their pants, and also asking them to recite the Kalma. The non-Muslims were then singled out and shot dead. This resembled the Hamas attack on multiple locations in Israel on October 7th, 2023. At the end of the swift attack, about 26 were killed and about 20 others were injured. Very quickly, news came about that this attack was carried out by a terror outfit named the Resistance Front. Who is the terrorist? Who is the Resistance Front? We'll talk about it later. But then 4 days later, they retracted their claim. The Baisaran Valley is a meadow that is accessible only through a steep trekking route surrounded by deep gorges and dense pine forests. You can actually see the picture on your screen if you are listening to us, if you are watching us on YouTube. The route is largely unmotorable, which is why first responders took some time to reach the spot. To think that you can have boots on the ground everywhere is not possible, said Lieutenant General Huda, former Northern Army commander who was in charge during the time of the 2016 surgical strikes. PM Narendra Modi was on a state visit to Saudi Arabia and cut short his visit and returned a day earlier than scheduled. On his advice, Home Minister Amit Shah rushed to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Amidst all this, we should also remember that US Vice President J.D. Vance was in India on an official visit. Now, why Pahalgam? Again, we'll go into it in detail, but just to make our listeners and viewers understand, Pahalgam is also one of the base camps of Amarnath Yatra. 2025 version of the Amarnath Yatra is supposed to start in less than 10 weeks, hardly 2 months. Pahalgam is the tourist hub of J&K along with Gulmarg and Srinagar. As claimed by the terrorists, a lot of non-Kashmiris come here in a concerted effort to change the demographics. But the terrorists, I think, miss a point. These non-Kashmiris were not coming there to settle down. Rather, they were tourists who are willing to spend their money on tourism activities in Jammu and Kashmir. Mohal, I want you to come in here. I've spoken about why Pahalgam, but I want you to now talk about why now. What's the reason behind the timing, and then we can continue with our discussion forward. Mohal?
Yes, Kishor. So let's step back to an events from earlier this year. Now, there have been in Pakistan constant attacks on the Pakistani armed forces, including the Pakistan Army, especially over the last few months. Their chief of army staff, Asim Munir, had blamed the Taliban authorities for sheltering and assisting both the Baluchistan Liberation Army, the BLA, and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. He also made his point that like India was involved in sheltering and supporting these terrorism activities against Pakistan. Now, on March 14th, in a joint press conference, the DGISI, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, and the Baluchistan Chief Minister uh, said that the BLA's physical attack was simultaneously an informational warfare operation was undertaken by Indian media to spread disinformation. So his implication was clear that Indian agencies had acted in support of the BLA operation. So just to give a background, basically the BLA had attacked a train in Balochistan, in which many of the passengers were army men from the Pakistani army, and they taken quite a few hostage, and there was a lot of casualties. So, anyways, soon after the this attack, the Pakistan army said that the rules of the quote, the rules of the game had changed. Now, this did not uh, generate a lot of news in terms of what was said. Obviously, the train attack was in the news in India, but the statement, the rules of the game have changed, at least perked up the ears of at least one former ambassador to Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Thailand, Vivek Kajju. So Vivek Kajju back then, he wrote in an op-ed kind of a warning that something was afoot in Pakistan, and he was warning the Indian establishment via his op-ed that India needs to be on the guard because they could very well cause some trouble in India, and which did happen just a few days ago. So, tourism was back in Kashmir over the past few years. After the events of August 5, 2019, the security was tight and there was still apprehensions about violence. So, plus we had the COVID pandemic. But after that, uh, in 2023, just the past year, sorry, 2024, for which we had the numbers, there was a record 2.3 crore people I visited Jammu and Kashmir last year. And Kishore, that conversion comes out to like what, 23 million for the
Yeah,
non-Indian viewers?
yes, 23 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like a bumper tourist season, and the number was going up because a sense of normalcy had returned. Many people have reported that it was hard to make reservations at certain hotels in Kashmir because of the high tourist inflow um, for the past few years. Now, this attack happened like just at the beginning of the tourist season, with the more prominent Amarnath Yatra happening in June, and there is bound to be now cancellations. Recent figures have shown that the tourism in Jammu and Kashmir is worth a staggering 20,000 crores, which is, I think, roughly 2.6, 2.7 billion, given the exchange rate, US dollars. So it was a big business that the Kashmiris were benefiting from tourism. Even Home Minister Amit Shah had mentioned that slowly J&K was peaceful, and was I mean, basically a sense of normalcy was slowly developing in Jammu and Kashmir. The so-called conflict economy, where there is to be stone pelting regularly, and many times money used to exchange hands into the stone pelters, uh, was stopped. The streets that were deserted at night had evaporated over the past 6 years. Some of the separatist elements who earlier were funded by this conflict economy, including like there were allegedly said to be payments from uh, people in the Pakistan embassy in New Delhi to separatist elements in Kashmir. I think all that flow of funds was cut out. So some of the separatist elements had also fought the state elections that happened just 6 months ago in September 2024. So this attack was clearly an attempt to disrupt the narrative that normalcy had returned in JNK since August 5, 2019. Now, looking at a wider geopolitical scene, post the withdrawal of USA from Afghanistan in 2021, Pakistan has been left in the wayside by both the successively by Biden and Trump administrations. With the ongoing trade war that we just talked about in our last episode, and the Gaza crisis that has been ongoing for better part of 1.5 years, Pakistan might have felt that the Kashmir issue is not on anyone's active radar. Now, doing this dastardly attack will again internationalize the issue and also try to create uh, opinion around the world that everything is not normal in Jammu and Kashmir. Domestically, within Pakistan, Baluchistan and KPK are in flames. POJK is repeatedly seeing like protest every month or two. The army's credibility also has been hit since the charismatic Imran Khan became prime minister. Now, once Imran Khan was a darling of the army, but since he fell out with the army and he has been on all-out attack on the army establishment, a battle which he has lost like many former prime ministers and now sits in jail on a host of corruption and security charges. इमरान खान did make famous the slogan ये जो दहशतगर्दी है उसके पीछे वर्दी है. So for the non Hindi listeners, basically that means that whatever behind the violence is the root cause is basically the worthy or the uniformer, which is the army. So he has been probably one of the first and I would say like only PM to lower the image of the Pakistan army from its high pedestal with his charismatic image and constant attacks on the army. I mean, many other PMs have tried it, but they have been way unsuccessful. Obviously, there is a element of social media allowing him to spread the message because it cannot be clamped down on the army as such, but also his image and persona and the Pakistani people's deep uh, dissatisfaction with the state of affairs of how army and also the Bhutto and Sharif families have something to do with it. But it's more about Imran Khan. So now to overcome all these challenges, they wanted to the army had to do something about it. Now, just a few weeks ago, in a speech to overseas Pakistanis, I mean, they're not called non-resident Indians, but I mean Pakistanis, so they're called like more like overseas Pakistanis. Their chief of army staff, Asim Munir, said spoke about the two nation theory and his insistence on the, I quote, like stark differences between Hindus and Muslims. And he said that the Muslims of Pakistan are different from Hindus in every possible aspect of life. He said our religion is different, our customs are different, our traditions are different, our thoughts are different, our ambitions are different. So this has to be seen in the context where Munir is like kind of rehashing the now infamous two nation theory that was proposed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah just before the partition in 1947. Munir also asked his audience to tell this to your quote to tell this to your children so they never forget the story of Pakistan, end quote. So this shows that uh, he was fully invoking like religion and the two nation theory to kind of make a point about the difference in Pakistan. I mean, I don't think anybody in Pakistan or India who's an adult need to be reminded of this. Everybody is well versed in history, but his harping on this was kind of jarring to say the least. Now, Asim Munir is like coming from a well-known religious family in Rawalpindi. His father was an imam at a mosque, and Munir himself uh, studied the Quran at a seminary under a Islamic preacher. So, and he is the first army chief with overtly Islamic credentials. I mean, he has been dropping quotes from the Quran. I mean, obviously, like a lot of our past army chiefs would have been religious, but like Munir is on a completely different level. Um, he does quote like verses from the Quran in many of his speeches. He tries to blend the present day situation with verses in many of his speeches. Now, it's become so overt that the print founder and former Indian Express editor Shekhar Gupta and few others have referred to him as a Mullah General. Now, General Ved Malik, who was the Chief of Army Staff of Indian Army during the Kargil War, was blunt in an assessment that he did in an interview with Barkha Dutt when he said that the Pakistani army had become an army of jihadis. So these are like pretty strong statements coming from folks like Shekhar Gupta, General Ved Malik, and also many others have similar. I mean, we don't have the time to go over the quotes from each and everybody, but they have been saying like this is a highly an overtly religious general who's been adding the element of religion into something like India-Pak relations. So this was uh, kind of to play on the Hindu-Muslim kind of tensions between the two countries, and also by openly targeting and killing Hindu males in this massacre, they wanted to create outrage in India and trying to stoke up communal tensions because they wanted like more like riots and more riots in India and more chaos in India. Now, a couple of other points that wanted to bring up before I end my part. So, just a year ago, and this was kind of overshadowed with the results of the election on June 5th, 2024 of the Indian general elections. But just 4 days later, on June 9th, there was an attack on a bus carrying pilgrims in Riyasi. I think this was, I think, in the Jammu region, if I'm not wrong. A bus carrying more than 50, I think 53 passengers, had 9 people shot dead, but the others had kind of a lucky escape because the bus fell into a ditch and other survivors survived death. I mean, in a way, falling in a ditch is not a good thing, I would say. But the thing is that maybe a bigger tragedy might have happened if the bus did not fall in a ditch and the terrorists had a chance to kill even way more people. Now,
Yeah.
at that time, many people had pointed out that this was a change in the pattern. I mean, usually civilians are targeted, and we had a lot of attacks on civilians in, like, let's say, early part of the 21st century, like in the early 2000s. But this was kind of change where there was a change in the pattern from attacks on military personnel in Kashmir to people. So at that time, a few people had raised the red flags that something had changed in the Pakistani thinking. But I guess that fell by the wayside, and it was not ignored. Also, last year we had a lot of attacks in the Jammu region. I don't know now. It's hard to say whether that was that diverted the attention of the security personnel from the Kashmir to the Jammu region, because the Kashmir region was mostly peaceful. But it's like a guessing game right now as to what might have transpired in terms of the security establishment. But uh, this is where we are at. And last thing, I think you mentioned the JD Vance visit. So, I mean, history doesn't repeat, but many times, as I say, it does rhyme. Now, interestingly, 25 years ago, terrorists had perpetrated the Chittisingapura massacre of civilians during the visit of then US President Bill Clinton. So, maybe JD Vance being in India, maybe there should have been some uh, better prepared security as to why as to maybe, like, they should be on their guard during
Mhm.
this visit, because always Pakistan wants to create a high profile event
Yeah.
when foreign diplomats are visiting to raise the attention in across the world. Kishore.
Correct. 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 Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's not just a one-off attack. I mean, it's not that there was an attack only when President Bill Clinton came in or Vice President J.D. Vance came in. So this has been the standard formula every time you have a U.S. president or another world renowned figure coming in. But yeah, with regards to your point about the Riyasi bus massacre, you were right when you said that this happened in the Jammu region. And just a point there that the people in the bus were actually pilgrims to the Vaishno Devi shrine. So it was again an attack on Hindu pilgrims, so to speak, just that it never got portrayed that way. But yes, you are right that for the past 1.5 to 2.5 years, almost all attacks or almost all terror attacks were happening in the Jammu region. And many Jammu and Kashmir watchers were actually wondering why you said that the terrorists have now shifted focus completely on the Jammu region, and that the Rohingyas who have kind of settled down in and around the Jammu region, in and around the Jammu city, were they also hand in glove with the terrorists? So that was the kind of concern that Jammu and Kashmir watchers had all along. But possibly you are right when you say that this might have just been a perfect decoy adopted by the terrorists, trying to keep the valley, the Kashmir Valley, as silent as possible, trying to put the Indian uh, security agencies into a lull, making them feel that everything is kind of normal there. And I think that was that played a major role in terms of a surprise factor for the Pahalgam attack. Yeah, so thank you, Mohal. So that was good enough primer on why exactly now. And we'll just talk about the reaction that came in from India in terms of the government reaction. We'll talk about the political angle also later. Mohal, you can cover that. But right now, I'll just talk about the government response that came in. So within a day of this attack, India stopped the Indus water. I mean, they announced that they'll walk back from the Indus water treaty
I
with
mean,
Pakistan,
it's not they are canceling it, but it's just held in abeyance, like which is
held in
on
abeyance.
hold.
Exactly. So they said that they'll walk back from the treaty, which essentially means that they will not adhere to any of the provisions of the treaty. Now, in addition, they also said that the defense advisors, they can be Army, Navy, or Air Force advisors of the Pakistan High Commission in India, they had to leave India with immediate effect. Additionally, they also said that 25 out of 55 officials of the Pakistan embassy had to leave India immediately. The Wagah Atari integrated checkpost near Amritsar would be closed. Visas of all Pakistani citizens were cancelled, and those who were already in India were ordered to leave India within 48 hours. Indian government announced that Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SARC visa exemption scheme, SVES visa. So that is a separate type of a visa, and the Pakistanis were told that you cannot travel under that visa scheme. Additionally, the latest news is that houses of elite terrorists in Pulwama and in other places of the Jammu and Kashmir Valley have been razed in multiple blasts. And the latest count, I think, by the time we are recording here on Sunday evening in India and Sunday morning in the US, is that six terrorists, their houses have been destroyed in and around the Kashmir Valley. Now, we'll go in detail in the Indus Water Treaty, and we'll show you a picture right now. We'll show you a picture right now. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can refer to that picture. Mind you, that the picture actually shows the POJK as part of Pakistan, but you know that that's the occupied part of Jammu and Kashmir, and the overall state of Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. Now, with that, I think we'll talk about the history behind the Indus Water Treaty. We know that it was signed in 1960, but it was actually after 9 years of negotiations. It was facilitated by World Bank, and it was signed on September 19th, 1960, by the then Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and former Pakistani President Field Marshal Ayub Khan. India was given control over three eastern rivers, Ravi, Satluj, and Beas, while Pakistan was assigned control over the other three western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab. As part of the treaty, India is required to allow the waters of the western rivers to flow into Pakistan with only a very few minimal exceptions. Now, there is a history even before this. In 1948, India temporarily stopped the flow of water to Pakistan, leading Pakistan to raise the issue with the United Nations. United Nations recommended involving a neutral third party, prompting the World Bank to step in and mediate. After years of negotiation, eventually it was signed in 1960, which we all know. Now, the treaty itself allows India to develop hydroelectric projects on the western rivers, but these projects must adhere to strict conditions. What are they? They must be run-of-the-river projects, implying that they cannot significantly alter the flow or storage of water, ensuring that Pakistan's water rights as the downstream riparian country are not adversely affected. Now, 70% of the water in the western three rivers go to Pakistan and only are in the western three rivers, and only 30% of the total water flow are in the eastern three rivers. Now, this clearly indicates that India got a short end of the deal, whereas Pakistan actually enjoyed the richer share of the deal. Now, ongoing dispute between India and Pakistan. With that, we now have design features of two hydroelectric power projects. Now, what's happening is that India has been trying to build dams not only on the western rivers but also on the eastern rivers, all along trying to adhere to the Indus Water Treaty. But more importantly, after the 2016 and the 2019 attacks and the response, the surgical strike and the Balakot attack, India has been trying to build more dams, ensuring that India itself utilizes more of its water share. Now, two such major projects are the Kishan project, which is uh, which is planned to generate around 330 megawatts of power. It was inaugurated in 2018, and then we also have the Ratle project, which is much bigger. It is planned to generate around 850 megawatts of power. This, however, remains under construction. Although neither project is financed by the World Bank, both have drawn objections from Pakistan over alleged violations of the Indus Water Treaty. Now, the crux of the disagreement concerns whether the technical specifications of these plans infringe upon the treaty stipulations. Both projects are situated in India on tributaries of the Jhelum and the Chenab rivers which, along with the Indus, are designated as the western rivers under the treaty. Now, according to the treaty, Pakistan should have unrestricted use of these rivers, while India is permitted to construct hydroelectric facility on them only under specific conditions. These projects must conform to design constraints outlined in the treaty's annexures, ensuring that they are run of the river, as I told you earlier. So post the 2016 Uri attack, Modi had indicated that blood and water cannot flow together. Now, this was a clear indication that Indian government had one eye on the Indus Water Treaty and on the unrestricted flow of water that India was letting go into Pakistan. Now, the step will directly impact Pakistani civilians and farmers in Punjab and Sindh areas who lie in the downstream. We'll talk about it in detail a little later. Pakistan is heavily dependent on the Indus system for 80% of its irrigated agriculture, supporting 16 million hectares and 25% of its GDP, and now can face severe consequences. What are they? It can face reduced water flow from the western rivers, disrupting irrigation, lower crop yields, and increasing food insecurity, particularly in Punjab and Sindh. Now, lack of flood data could hinder Pakistan's ability to prepare for monsoon-related flooding. Additionally, Pakistan's limited water storage capacity, especially the Mangla and the Tarbila dams, hold only 10% of its annual share, amplifying the risk of water scarcity. In Pakistan, reduced water availability could fuel unrest among farmers and strain its economy, already facing challenges. Interestingly, while Srinagar and Delhi and New Delhi have been at odds over a lot of things, this step is something that Kashmiris agree with. Omar Abdullah had indicated that Indus Water Treaty was an unfair document and that Kashmiris over the years have not bought into that treaty. In 2003, Jammu and Kashmir State Assembly had passed a unanimous resolution for the abrogation of the treaty, and again in 2016, the Assembly demanded a revision of the Indus Water Treaty. So even government of India had thought that it had to ask for renegotiating the treaty. So it went ahead and requested Pakistan to renegotiate the treaty, and this was something that Pakistan steadfastly refused all along. Now, which are the projects? One of them is the Tulbul navigation project across Jhelum, revived after the 2016 Uri attack, capable of regulating seasonal flows. It was once shelved under pressure, but it is now a strategic asset. The Kishanganga hydroelectric project across Jhelum, it was operational since 2018. It is a 23-kilometer diversion tunnel rerouting flow away from Pakistan, reducing water dependency risks. The Ratli hydroelectric power project across Chenab, it was revived in 2021 after multiple delays. Again, as I told you, it's 850 megawatt plant that makes Islamabad nervous about potential flow manipulation. The Shapur Kandi Dam across River Ravi, it was cleared in 2018. It has been designed to prevent surplus Indian river water from flowing into Pakistan. Poonch multipurpose project across a tributary of Ravi was cleared in 2020, combining hydro, irrigation, and storage to maximize the use of India's water before it crosses the border. As per some accounts, India currently utilizes over 90% of its allocated quota of Indus waters. But now, obviously, India now wants to ensure that it will utilize more water than its own share. Now, all of this infrastructure aligns with a single long-term doctrine, maximizing India's upper riparian advantage. Amit Shah met the Jal Shakti Minister C.R. Patil and formalized plans on how to ensure usage of maximum amount of water that can be used in India. Desalting of the rivers, increasing the storage, etc., have been discussed in a short, medium, and long-term plan that is being drawn up. Water resources, the Jal Shakti Minister C.R. Patil said, and I quote, India will ensure that not a drop of water will go to Pakistan, unquote. In fact, he also went ahead and said that the government was preparing short, medium, and long-term plans to implement this. And he elaborated, telling that he'll be focusing on desalting of the rivers. Now, additionally, in an article in the Deccan Herald, senior advocate Mohan Katarki said, and I quote, the suspension of the Indus Treaty is a good decision in the national interest. While the treaty lacks a termination clause, international law permits unilateral withdrawal or suspension by the state. There is no court with compulsory jurisdiction to adjudicate or declare such termination illegal. Unquote. Now, Mohal, this was the response by the
So
Indian government,
yeah, so
and especially in
just
terms of the Indus Water Treaty.
yeah, so I wanted to just add a few points. So,
Mhm.
like many in Pakistan are up in arms about this. I mean, holding it in abeyance because we are not scrapping it completely, but there is like precedent to it in terms of like US, if you remember, has unilaterally exited the anti-ballistic missile treaty in 2002 during the George Bush administration, and the intermediate range nuclear forces treaty in 2019, citing national security threats both times. So there are cases where nations unilaterally withdraw themselves from a treaty, though it might not sound for a good reading optically, but there have been cases where nations are permitted to suspend or withdraw from a treaty in an event of a breach from another party, or there is fundamental change in the circumstances for that. And then one more point was that there has been also this fear that since India is an upper riparian state and Pakistan is a lower riparian state, which means that the waters flow from start in India and end up in Pakistan. Same issue occurs with Tibet and the Chinese control over there. So China could block the flow of water to the rivers such as the Brahmaputra. I mean, there have been reports that they've been building a huge dam on the
Mhm.
Brahmaputra, and what if China does? But I don't think India can. First of all, there's no water sharing treaty with China on that, so there is no treaty to be for them to withdraw from. Also, uh, being a downstream or lower riparian state to China, I don't think we can hold back ourselves to take necessary coercive steps against Pakistan. That, oh, what if China does this the same to us? So we have to deal with the consequences. Like, we cannot be what do you call, frozen by a lack of fear of what China might possibly do or not do, and they might very well do. And also there are also challenges. Like, I mean, it's in a seismically active zone, so China's dams could also have issues. Also, like, I think I saw this report on or this analysis from on X that I think a lot of part of the, because the Indian Northeast receives a lot of rainfall. They say like around 80% of the water is from the catchment areas um in India itself. So even if China blocks, like, let's say, every drop of water, still India would get 80% of supply. Obviously, there'll be issues in the Northeast and even downstream Bangladesh, right? For that matter. So I don't think we can be bound by that fear, is what my point was. Kishore?
No, great point. Yeah, I think also right now, China willingly or unwillingly sometimes blocks information of the flood water that it
Oh, yeah.
sends out. So that way, I think there is a lot of cooperation that can be achieved between India and China. But anyway, that's a different ballgame altogether. And of course, we cannot be held hostage by that just because we are the lower riparian state when it comes to China. Great point, nevertheless. But yeah, Mohal, what we'll do now is why don't you talk about the Indian political reaction across the political spectrum? And in fact, I also want you to cover the global reaction by other world leaders. Mohal?
Yeah, so the government called for an all-party meet uh, the day after the events, and they explained the situation on the ground. There has been broad consensus, unlike like the domestic situation where there's a lot of disagreements among the various political parties. I believe like the Congress Party, the Indian National Congress had called for a candlelight vigil.
Mhm.
Manish Tiwari, a senior INC leader, in a blistering op-ed, has called for Pakistan to cease to exist, which might sound a bit extreme coming from the Congress Party, but it might sound almost like an op-ed from BJP. But I mean, there has been very harsh reaction from. I mean, this is like a national security issue, so this which something that unites uh, all the parties, and even uh, maybe except Robert Vadra, like, who made a bizarre statement to say the least. I think there has been very mature and supportive statements from all the parties in India, irrespective of whether they are part of the ruling coalition or not. Even Syuddin Owaisi, who is like no friend of government on most issues and takes sides against the BJP, he said like that like Hindus were killed because of their religion and should be avenged. And Owaisi also donned a black band on his forearm and distributed black bands to people before they went for namaz in condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. For example, the Telangana Chief Minister Reddy, like from the Congress Party with other leaders, including Owaisi, gave a speech to give asking PM Modi to give a befitting reply to Pakistan, and they even urged Modi to do what Indira Gandhi did in 1971, is to split Pakistan and merge POK with India. So there's been uh, very uh, I mean, people are united in that view. I mean, people are appalled by this horrific attack on unarmed civilians, and there is like uh, agreement that something needs to be done in Pakistan. Now, during this all-party meet, the center did admit that lapses led to the Pahalgam terror attack, telling the opposition leaders that local tour operators had opened that area route to tourists without informing the administration, due to which there was no deployment of security personnel in the area. Uh, they say usually the route is open during tourist in June, coinciding with the commencement of the Yamarnath Yatra. However, the tour operators opened it up as early as 20th April without knowledge of the authorities. However, to provide a counterpoint here, like many people on social media have been saying that their relatives or they themselves visited this area weeks ago or even months ago, and
Yeah.
this area was always open, kind of uh, disproving what the official claim is.
Mhm.
that this has been visited a lot, and I mean it brings up a whole host of questions, that whether this was not anticipated, whether there was I mean it's hard to have soldiers on every square inch of soil in like a large state like Jammu and Kashmir, but still like this should be have been anticipated that if there was no security, especially in a tourist spot, this would occur. This would be like a um, it's not like that there would be prior warning for of this sort, like an intelligence failure, but it would be like as we say, like with most events, like such horrific event, that there is a lack of imagination on the security apparatus pass. Now this has been a problem that we have been having these attacks repeatedly, maybe not as often in the last 10 years, but there has to be some accountability set up eventually, that this cannot be keep happening, and there has to be better security arrangements
Mhm.
for events, especially where unarmed tourists are at, and try to just minimize. Obviously you cannot avoid like all 100% of uh, events, but if you can minimize it to a large extent, that would be very productive for everyone involved. So anyways, moving on to the international reaction, there has been a wide condemnation of these events from all across the world, including the US, UK, Canada, even like many of the Middle Eastern countries have condemned. I mean, for God's sake, like even like Taliban issued a statement condemning the attack. Like supposedly the closest friends of Pakistan have also condemned this attack. So I
Even
think
China, right?
yeah, even China, like, like there has been absolutely zero support for Pakistan for this horrific events. I mean, they might have wanted to internationalize this issue, but they stand kind of isolated,
Yeah.
and nobody has even kind of supported Pakistan even a bit in any of the statements. Maybe some of the statements might be a bit vague, but yeah, like they have been completely isolated on this issue. Kishore?
Yeah, that's a good point that worldwide condemnation has poured in, and even countries like even the Taliban administration, even China, they all have condemned the attack. And yeah, good point. So now let's look at the financial actions that India is planning to take or can take, and I think we can then elaborate on this and see how or what options does the Indian government have. Now, first thing first, Mohal, elaborating on the point that you just mentioned, utilizing the global support that we have or the worldwide condemnation, India can go back to the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, which are the global watchdog on terror financing, and ask them to blacklist Pakistan all over again. If you remember, Pakistan has been in and out of the blacklist. It struggled a lot to get out of the blacklist. At least about two or three extensions or two or three times they were allowed to bring back more documentary evidence, and eventually they were brought out from the blacklist into the green list. And not sure where they stand right now, but India would want to send them back to the blacklist all over again. Now, ramification of that is that Pakistan will then find extremely hard to get any kind of international financial assistance on any of its projects. Now the catch there, FATF works on consensus. Now, China is also a member of FATF, and we know that in the past, China has blocked all attempts by India to blacklist LAT and even blacklist Pakistan itself in its earlier attempts. So this time around, also India might face similar trouble, but based on the slightly improving India-China relation, India might want to go on a diplomatic spree, diplomatic overdrive, trying to woo China, trying to woo Beijing, asking them to support India's uh, drive this time around. So I think that is something that we might keep hearing in the near future. And even otherwise, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and its offshoot, the resistance front. they might be declared as terror outfits within India, and then India might want its allies like the United States and other countries like France, UAE to go ahead and declare them as banned terror outfits. Now, as everybody knows, LAT was founded by Hafiz Syed in the mid 1980s, and its stated objective is to merge the whole of Kashmir with Pakistan. TRF, the Resistance Front, on the other hand, began as an online entity. Its leadership comprises individuals closely linked to LET, namely Sajid Jat, Sajjad Gul, and Salim Rahmani, all reportedly operating from Pakistan. TRF is believed to operate with a decentralized structure, collaborating with other terror outfits, maintains a strong social media presence, using it for propaganda, recruitment, and coordination. Indian agencies believe that TRF was formed to give cross border terrorism in Kashmir a homegrown appearance in 2019, especially due to pressure from FATF. Indian agencies also believe that the name TRF was deliberately chosen to break from the trend of using explicit Islamic names. Now, a thread by Twitter handle X handle SUDSG5 exposed the precarious financial situation of Pakistan. And I will pick out the relevant points from that thread. Pakistan's forex reserves currently hover around $11 billion, barely enough to cover 3 months of imports in peacetime. Now, remember that the monthly petroleum imports to Pakistan are roughly around $1 billion. So you can understand that Pakistan is currently running on very less foreign exchange reserves. Already, it owes around $131 billion externally. More critically, 51% of its total revenue expenditure is used for debt servicing, which is about 75% of the tax revenue. They cannot raise more paper, obviously, and if they do, it won't be cheap. Inflation is running very hot at around 20%. A post-war scenario could blow it up to 50-60%, unlike Ukraine, which was given a whole host of donated weapons and loans and grants. Except China, we hardly see any other country coming in to aid Pakistan. Additionally, Pakistan has now banned Indian flights from using its airspace. While this will cause inconvenience for passengers traveling to and from India, it will also result in loss of revenue for Pakistan simply because it used to enjoy the overflight rights. There are other possible financial actions that can be taken by India. A complete economic boycott of Pakistan can be carried out. Any ship that anchors in Gwadar or Karachi port can be declared as not welcome to anchor in any Indian port. This will mean that the cargo companies will have to choose either between Pakistan or India. This can easily then be taken one level higher. Any foreign company doing business in Pakistan will not be welcome in India. That can be the stand taken by the Indian government. This will also then mean that these companies will then have to choose between a struggling economy of Pakistan or a booming $4 trillion economy of India. Additionally, India walking out of the IWT, the Indus Water Treaty, can lead to severe water shortage in states of Punjab and Sindh. In fact, in 2024 winter, a winter drought ravaged crops in Punjab, which is considered to be Pakistan's breadbasket. Sindh, which is Pakistan's most urbanized province, located in the south, witnessed a rainfall which is 52% below normal levels, according to the Pakistani Met Department, and these numbers are from last year, 2024 winter. Vagaries of global warming, flash floods, severe droughts, and excessive rainfalls can lead to unpredictable situations for both Sindh and Punjab. If India chooses to not share information about excess flood waters being released into the rivers, then Pakistan might have to handle water-based tragedies leading to crop loss, infrastructure loss, and other related things. So I think that way there can be a lot of financial action that India can take. And Mohal, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so just like today, there was an article in Reuters which says, which was like
Mhm.
interviewing farmers in like Sindh. And basically, I mean, it was like kind of a quotable quote from one of the farmers. He said that, quote, if they stop water, all of this will turn into the Thar Desert, the whole country, end quote. So this is like, there's already like panic in Pakistan about like the implications of the water not being there. Already it's a water deficit nation. I mean, they had like, I think they had floods maybe a couple of years ago, and then they had successive droughts. So
Correct.
this is kind of one of the levers that India has pulled so that the population might, I mean, might be angry at India, but like this is to put economic pressure on Pakistan, so they sink deeper into the abyss, and then
What?
they maybe their uh, deep state or army finally realizes the folly of like uh, supporting cross-border terrorism. Kishore.
Yeah, one thing to note here is that the agriculture sector in Pakistan, the farmers, they do not use modern technical methods to grow their crops. Most of them depend on age-old methods of growing their crops. So I think any water-based problem that they face, they will have no other option but to forego their crop for the entire season. So I think the Reuters article that you just mentioned, I think their fear is valid. Their fear is definitely concerning for the farmers of Sindh and Punjab. Okay.
Yeah, and then even like in
Mhm.
even like the percentage of GDP that is contributes to the GDP in Pakistan is like around almost like quarter, like 20, I think it's 25 more closer to 25% than 20%, while in India it's like much lower at 15%. So any
Correct.
kind of hit to agriculture will show up massively on their GDP side. Kishore.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's talk about kinetic options, something that most people would be interested in knowing. So Mohan, you want to talk about the possible kinetic options that India has at this moment?
Yeah, with Pakistan has already been cranking up its air defense and alertness level. I think there are videos on social media where they're moving tanks, rockets, and
Right.
all kinds of
Right.
military hardware towards the border. They've been actually in one of the press conferences. It was kind of, I think somebody posted on X. It was kind of hilarious that a journalist straight up asked one of their forget like what is the defense secretary, or whether it was one of the government officials, like, are you moving so and so formation to the border? And it was kind of like, why would you ask that in an open forum? Anyways, but jokes apart, uh, the question will be like, what will India do? I mean, India will have to very carefully weigh its military options, because unlike the last two times, Pakistan is not going to get try to get caught off guard. I mean, a less tactical option would be to break the ceasefire along the border with Pakistan, which is, I mean, mostly held since February 2021, but there have been a lot of attacks inside Jammu and Kashmir, and many people have called for it to be shelled, no pun intended. So there would be like maybe firing by artillery guns and heavy mortars across the border, like sniping at their forward posts and patrols. But that's only like of limited value. The question is like, how do you start a military conflict and not have it escalate? I mean, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the former Prime Minister of India, during the Parakram, sorry, uh, which was undertaken following the 2001 Parliament attacks, he says like, when he was asked like, why didn't we go to war? He says like, he asked the question that we all know how to start a war. Like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, maybe it might be very bad paraphrasing, that we know it was easy to start a war, but one does not know when the war ends. So the thing is like, we need to have clear cut out goals, otherwise you could be stuck in a quagmire. And also remember, like, even the mobilizing of the army at the border, in a show of course a diplomacy, like, resulted in like over almost 800 soldiers being killed. Like, I think it was 798, and which was like way more than 527 that were killed in the Kargil war. This is something like most people don't know, that we lost more lives in Parakram than in Kargil war. So things have to be thought out carefully, and also necessary steps have to be taken. Um, I mean, to the how the I mean, a lot of soldiers like were killed in Parakram, like around 100 soldiers were killed, and I think 250 were killed during mine laying operations. There were vehicle accidents and artillery duels and a lot of incidents which led to a lot of casualties. So the question is like, not only how do you prepare well for it to avoid this unfortunate incidents, but also how do you not climb the escalation ladder with the enemy. So in like military conflict, there's something called an escalation ladder. So let's say if India does A, then Pakistan responds with B, which is kind of to deliver a response back to India. But then if India might be tempted to go for a higher option C, and Pakistan might respond to the higher option D. So the thing is, technically, you could go from like the similar limited military skirmish at a one place of the border to full all-out war and possibly even nuclear attack. Obviously, the chance of nuclear attack is very, very small, even though
Mhm.
Pakistan keeps saying that. But the question is like, when do you stop in? Because if you might want to have the last say in any kind of duel. Now, in 2019, like when we did the Balakot airstrike, they had the retaliatory airstrike in Kashmir the next day, and in which like a MiG-21 was shot down, and also there one of the F-16s was shot down. So, but after that, India, I mean, maybe there was no retaliatory attack after that, or we didn't climb the escalation ladder because, I mean, Abhinandan was shot down and he was a prisoner of war in Pakistan, and I mean, the reports from a Pakistani member of parliament was that that like there was like Prime Minister Modi had threatened a missile attack, uh, and like the legs of Prime Minister Imran Khan were shaking and stuff like this. So who knows? I mean, are we in for a round of missile attacks this time? I mean, because obviously the ground cross border surgical strikes and the air attacks, the air strikes have been done. So I mean, we just like it's a complete speculation on what could be done. But basically, the whole thing is like, how do we climb? How do you deliver a response and not climb the escalation ladder at the same time?
Mhm.
So like interestingly, like Nitin Gokhale, the editor-in-chief of BharatShakti.in and Strat News Global, who is said to be close to the corridors of power in New Delhi with the ruling dispensation, in a recent interview said like India this time will have to look into hurting Pakistani army's interest. It could be their commercial interest, tactical or strategic interest, or one of its leaders. Just go for it. Even if you send a message that we have attempted to kill one of the Pakistani generals, that itself will serve the purpose. This could be one of their options. End quote. So, also, if you pair this with the Prime Minister's message, where he spoke at a about the Jammu and Kashmir, the Pahalgam attack in Hindi, he suddenly switched to English. I mean, this was like more targeted for the world audience and declared,
Yeah.
"Today," and I quote, "Today, from the soil of Bihar, I say to this whole world, India will identify, trace, and punish every terrorist and their backers. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth." So now, putting the Prime Minister's comments, which were interestingly made in English, in the middle of a speech in an election rally in Bihar, and uh, uh, maybe like, dare I say, even mid or high level army officers in Pakistan might be in the crosshairs of the Indian establishment, or maybe their economic interests might be in the crosshairs. So it'll be interesting to see like what kind of response will be done. Now, Pakistan might be trying to goad India to an escalatory ladder towards full-fledged war. The question is, how do you thread the? This is, I think, we talked even about after the Pulwama attacks like 6 years ago, that uh, how do you thread the needle where you deliver enough punishment on Pakistan and its terrorist handlers while also not climbing the proverbial escalation ladder with Pakistan? Now, if
Mhm.
the balloon goes up, does Pakistan have the wherewithal to sustain a prolonged military conflict which will strain its resources and finances? There's no doubt Pakistan will, army will retaliate. Pakistan might get the military clash it's itching to do. So how do you deliver a blow to Pakistan without falling into their game where they want a active conflict to divert attention from its internal domestic and political issues? This might not be this is not even an uneven fight like a big power or ragtag rebel group or much smaller military power. Pakistan might not be as strong as India as a near peer adversary. Even with the recent case of Houthis versus US or Ukraine versus Russia, a much smaller enemy has been hard to vanquish for the bigger power. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, Pakistan is kind of a near peer adversary that you can just like, okay, we'll just deliver attack and like, nothing might happen. Now, Uh, Unlike the last two times where there was an exactly an 11-day gap between the events in Uri and Pulwama and the response, this time I think, from what you can read between the lines from various military leaders and stuff, uh, there might be a more delayed response. Maybe it might uh, trying to do it the response in a timeline that doesn't fit the what Pakistan wants. And also, like, mind you, by keeping Pakistan forces on a tenterhooks for a longer time, it also drain their resources and money, which is always helping the long-term strategic goal of draining out Pakistan. Kishore?
Yeah, great point, Mohan. Um, okay, I think we have covered most of what we wish to. Any closing comments from you?
Yeah, so in a era of Trump tariff wars, India has been presented with a unique opportunity to onshore manufacturing from China. I think just yesterday we heard that Apple announced a plan to procure all iPhones for USA from India because of the lower tariff scheme.
Correct, correct.
Now, if the government goes for a military option, which results in an escalation ladder, do companies have second thoughts about moving to India? I mean, who knows? I mean, what is the level of anger among Indian public? Is there a big baying of blood among its citizens that the government is pushed to a kinetic option sooner rather than later at a time of its choosing? I mean, post surgical strikes and Balakot, like Modi has uh, built his image that he will deliver a tough response to Pakistan. So he cannot be seen to be doing nothing, and because the same allegation he put on the previous governments. Now we need a sustained pressure in various domains to bring Pakistan to its knees. Now it cannot be a spasmodic response where the pressure is put on Pakistan for one short event and then it's let off after some time. Because one event, whether it kind of military action, is not going to change the overall behavior of Pakistan. It takes much more than one military event to do that. I mean, we have seen that with Balakot, that where it deterred Pakistan from doing military for some time, but eventually it did return to its own. Uh, it's returned to the mean of its behavior of doing cross-border terrorism. Also, the another question is the defense budget. Now, many people have been raising voices about the needs to be an increased higher defense budget. Now, half the budget is spent on salaries and pensions in the Indian defense budget. So there is little room for in capex spending. Now, without the necessary military hardware, uh, it is hard to build a level of deterrence, because for Pakistan to not do cross-border terrorism, there has to be some level of higher level of deterrence where the enemy thinks twice before creating trouble for you. Now, the government probably needs to rethink where a lot of the budget is taken up by welfare schemes for political gains, but they need to loosen the strings to spend uh, maybe a few thousand crores uh, on the defense. I mean, given the whole central budget is like in the terms of lakh crores, I think it's like 4 lakh crores or 5 lakh crores. I forget the exact number, but so there has been even like prominent critics of the government, like Lieutenant General H.S. Panang, a former GOC Northern Command and who is no fan of the Modi government, said in an op-ed, and I quote, "Don't hack hastily, keep Pakistan on edge, and then strike decisively and repeatedly." Another military veteran, retired Lieutenant General Satish Dua, the former GOC 15 Corps. I mean, 15 Corps, for the listeners who don't know, is like covers basically the Kashmir Valley, said, and I quote, "A bold military response will follow." So I think even like military veterans who are no fan of the current ruling dispensation, they have mentioned that there has to be a military response, but calmer and cooler heads need to prevail. Like, it doesn't mean that we have to strike right away,
Yeah,
because I mean, in that, this is my personal opinion. I think it's falling into Pakistan's game, and I think even they might be reiterating the same. It has to be two things. One, a sustained response. You cannot let the foot off the gas. I think this is what we mentioned post Pulwama also. And second thing is uh, that it we need to act at a time of our choosing. It cannot be right now, because I mean, or it cannot be an immediate response as how maybe on some on social media want, because that is right playing into the Pakistan's game. Kishore?
great point, Mohan. Yes, I think everybody should understand that this is not going to be a rush of blood kind of action taken by the Indian government. We all know that India will take some action. The kinetic action will come whenever it comes, but India should also be keen to signal that its response will not be limited to kinetic option. And they've already started with the scrapping of, not scrapping, but indicating that it'll put in abeyance the Indus Water Treaty. So I think beyond kinetic options, also the Indian government will continue to exercise its options. Now, India will also want to convey that once there is a military response, India will want to convey to Pakistan that if you wish to retaliate, then you will solely be responsible for the escalation. Or as we were mentioning, the ladder of escalation. So I think that way India can indicate that we have done our part. If you wish to take it forward, then you will solely be responsible. Now, obviously, this might lead to some amount of tit for tat strikes. But beyond that, beyond convincing their domestic constituencies, India will want to have some kind of a wide dimensional response. Now, this time around, also, as you clearly pointed out, most foreign capitals are with New Delhi in this regard. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard, the US Director of National Intelligence, has said that the US supports India as it hunts down the perpetrators. India has other options also, like, for example, the complete blockade of the Karachi port, which was seen in 1971 also. Uh, Karachi, as we all know, is Pakistan's premier trade hub and handles about 60% of the nation's cargo. India's concerted effort on world bodies like UNSC and FATF to get these terror outfits, I think that will also get good amount of support from major world capitals. Additionally, Pakistan has suspended the similar agreement of 1972 unilaterally. Now, this will mean that Pakistan and India need not respect the line of control anymore. So now that both Pakistan and India need not respect the line of control, this seems to be a clear health goal by Pakistan. All these years, Pakistan used to lie that LOC was beyond debate based on United Nations Security Council reservations, totally ignoring the Shimla Agreement. Now they are unilaterally putting the agreement in abeyance. I also see this as an opportunity for India to move beyond the self-imposed rule of not crossing the line of control. In fact, suddenly things start to move beyond ceasefire violations that were the norm all these years. Now, India, as Mohal you rightly pointed out, India may not opt for shock and awe response, as was seen during the 2016 and 2019 retaliations. Rather, this time around, India would want to slowly turn the heat on Pakistan, especially its generals, and ensure that they stop supporting terror groups. Even domestically, Government of India will have to dismantle all the remnants of terror sympathizers and local terror outfits within Jammu and Kashmir and beyond. With terror economy dismantled, there was no earnings otherwise. And now they are invested in tourism and normalcy, even though deep down they may not love India as much. Mohal, you have anything to add before we finally conclude?
Yeah, so on the normalcy, I think there have been a lot of protests within Kashmiris in Jammu and Kashmir. I
Mhm.
think the money angle is important to talk about or reiterate here. Uh, this money has given a new sense of let's say economic fulfillment to the Kashmiris. I mean, deep down, many or some of them might not dislike New Delhi's direct rule because it's a union territory and stuff, and they might not like being a part of India. So they might still harbor strong anti-India sentiments, to say the least. But I mean, the economic development that has happened post August 5, 2019, and the tourism is a big part of them, means that they have also protested vociferously against these killings because it does hurt there. So Pakistan might have done a self goal where they might have wanted sympathy from the Kashmiri brethren, but they might have ended up angering some of them, obviously not all of them, because some of them are still highly pro-Pakistan, where they don't uh, now enjoy the fruits of this tourism if the tourism industry is hit in Pakistan. Kishore?
In fact, that itself might have been the plan by Pakistan, wherein they would want to remind their Kashmiri brethren that, hey, you know what, you cannot go totally soft on New Delhi. You cannot start loving them for the money that they bring in.
Mm-hmm.
We are the real people with strings that we control. So
Yeah.
why don't you listen to us, and why don't you listen to what we say?
Yeah.
And
Uh,
how do we
yeah.
prove
Yeah.
that? Through terror attack like this.
Yeah, I think they want to break the new linkages formed between India and Pakistan. So there are a lot of points for even the Indian government to consider, that if there are a lot of attacks or mass casualties in Jammu and Kashmir as part of some military conflict, like does it affect economically not only India as a whole but Jammu Kashmir, and uh, so it's like it'll be like a fascinating few days or weeks to or months to come as to what happens. I mean, we might say it might be a slow response eventually. I mean, unlike like maybe a Pulwama, there's no political implications of an upcoming elections or stuff like that. So, but I mean, we could very well have an egg on face if, let's say, missile starts flying tomorrow on the Pakistanis. I mean, it's a lot of interesting facts to ponder over. So
Yeah.
let's see. It will be like an interesting few weeks in the days to come.
Yeah, just to remind our viewers, we are recording this on April 27th, Sunday, pretty much late in the evening in India and early in the morning in the US. Okay, that, dear listeners, wraps up today's episode where we spoke about the Pahalgam attack and the possible options that India has in terms of retaliation. To continue hearing about such interesting topics, do subscribe to our channel India Rising wherever you are listening or watching us. We would also like to hear from you if you have any suggestions on any topics that you would like us to cover. Do remember that these topics should be directly related to Indian foreign policy. Until the next episode, this is Mohal and Kishor signing off.